Good morning, everyone, and welcome to How to Develop Organizational Skills with Your Child. We are excited to have Ashley Lotfabadi today with us, Ernest Asante, Carrie Pecoraro, Scott Edmonds, and Trish Palmer. They are behavior intervention teachers from FCPS's Behavior Intervention Services. Behavior Intervention Services provides behavioral intervention and support for students receiving general education and or special education in grades pre-K through 12. Behavior intervention teachers are assigned to each pyramid and work closely to collaborate with administrators and staff to develop systematic plans for behavior. This is our fourth session in a series of four parts, and we will share the other parts with you after this session. And now I will turn it over to Ashley.
Thank you, Amal. Welcome everyone to our session on how to develop organizational skills with your child. Like Amal said, my name is Ashley Lotfabadi. I'm a behavior intervention teacher and I support part of the Oakton Pyramid. And we're going to go through and kind of introduce ourselves real quick and share how we are supporting Fairfax County.
Good morning. My name is Trish Palmer. I'm the behavior intervention teacher for, let me think, Herndon and a couple of other schools. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Pecoraro, and I am the behavior intervention teacher for the Lake Braddock Pyramid, Annandale Terrace, and Columbia Elementary.
Good morning. I'm Ernest Asante. I'm the behavior intervention teacher for the Mount Vernon Pyramid.
Good morning, Scott Edmonds. I support schools in Region 3 and Region 6.
Thanks, everyone. So this presentation is part of our larger Building Skills for Success series, which is digging deeper into executive function skills. This is our last in our series, and I know Amal just shared. And if you're interested in hearing our previous webinars, they'll be linked with the information you receive later next week. By the end of the session, you'll walk away with an understanding of the foundational science of organization, how to balance demands with reinforcement, and concrete strategies for implementing consistent organization in your own home. So what is executive function? Think of executive function as the air traffic control system for your child's brain. It's the mental toolkit that helps them plan, stay organized, control big emotions, and stay focused. In the classroom, these skills are what allow a child to follow directions, start their work, and handle changes without melting down. When a child's executive function skills are still under construction, it can often look like they aren't listening or are being purposely messy, but really, their brain is just learning how to juggle all those tasks. For example, if you ask your child to get ready for school, a child with developing executive function skills might get stuck after putting on one shoe because their brain hasn't quite mastered the multi-step planning needed to finish the job. The brain doesn't finish developing until our mid-20s, which means our kids literally need to borrow our support as their skills grow. But here's the best part. Even as adults, our brains are still capable of learning and changing. Executive function isn't a you have it or you don't trait. It's a set of muscles that people of all ages can strengthen with practice. For example, if you struggle with being on time, and you might use a phone alarm as an external tool, and you can model that same strategy for your child when they struggle to finish homework. And it's okay if these skills are a growth area for both of you. By reflecting on your own challenges first, you can meet your child with more patience and grace. And this process is a marathon, not a sprint. So be kind to yourself as you both take this on one step at a time. Executive function skills are all connected, and they work together to support a child's ability to be successful in learning, behavior, and relationship. Today's focus, organization, fits into the executive function skills of working memory and goal-directed attention and focus. Many people think of structure in the house as strict rules that limit children, but structure actually means just having clear and predictable routines. This helps children become more independent. When children know what to do, where to go, and how to start, they use less mental energy on figuring things out. This allows them to focus on the actual task. For example, a kindergarten child can follow a simple morning routine with pictures, or a middle school or high school student can use a checklist for homework. In each case, the structure supports the independence. As caregivers, our role is to put these supports in place. And over time, children learn to use them on their own. Structure doesn't hold children back. It gives them a stable base so they can manage tasks, solve problems, and work more independently. When we talk about organization, we're not just talking about clean rooms or tidy desks. Physical organization is one part of executive function, and it's something we can easily see. It gives us clues about how a child organizes information in their brain. And managing physical spaces like a backpack or a desk or a locker is often one of the first signs of a child's organizational skills. For example, a young child may learn where to put their folders each day, and then as they get into elementary school, they're going to start sorting those papers into subjects. And in middle school or high school, they learn to manage multiple folders and binders or digital files. And each time a child decides where something belongs, they're practicing important thinking skills. They're sorting, planning, and remembering. And these are key executive function skills that support learning and independence. Building organizational skills is not just about having a clean space. It helps develop the thinking skills children need for a long-term success. When caregivers provide clear and predictable systems, children know what to expect, and this reduces stress and helps them feel safe. When routines and systems are in place, children spend less energy figuring out what to do or where things go, and this allows them to focus more on learning. So, for example, a child who has a set place for their backpack can complete their morning routine more easily. Or if a student can follow a homework routine without as many reminders. A middle school or high school student can manage assignments using a planner or the digital system. And over time, this support builds independence and self-control. Children move from needing frequent reminders to managing their own tasks. Clear systems for how and where help children focus on what they need to do. We can group organizational skills into 3 key areas. These key areas are knowing time, knowing places, and knowing steps. If one of these is missing, children often have trouble starting or finishing a task. First is knowing time. This is the ability to understand how much time is passing and how long a task will take. Second is knowing places. This means having clear and consistent locations for materials. And third is knowing steps. This is about the ability to break a task into smaller and more manageable parts. When children have support in all 3 areas, time, place, and steps, they are more likely to start tasks, stay on track, and complete their work. So think of a moment when you or your child got stuck on a project or a task, and think, what do you think caused that frustration or caused that difficulty in completing the task? Was it about time management, about not having the right materials handy, or just not knowing what to do next? Developing a sense of time is more than reading a clock. It is a thinking skill that helps children understand how long tasks take and how to plan their day. And this skill is often called time management. Children learn to connect time to real activities. For example, an elementary student may learn that they have 30 minutes for homework before dinner, or a middle school student may have to plan the time between school and sports. A high school student may plan study time across several days for a test. Caregivers can support this by using clear tools instead of repeated reminders. Tools like visual timers, simple schedules, and clocks help children see and track time. And over time, children learn to compare how long a task feels with how long it actually takes. And this builds time estimation. Children also need support with sequencing and planning ahead. So a young child may need to leave extra time to get ready in the morning, or maybe an older student may plan to start homework early to avoid rushing at night. And adding extra time for those small problems like missing items really helps reduce stress. When children understand time, they're more likely to start tasks on time, move through their days smoothly, and complete their work with less stress. Knowing places means helping children have clear and consistent locations for their belongings. This helps organizations by reducing the load on working memory. When a children knows where things go, they don't have to keep that information in their mind or search for items. Caregivers can create simple systems, which each place has a home. So a young child may keep shoes and a backpack in the same spot every day, or you might use one folder per subject. Or older students might organize materials by class in binders or in digital folders online. Grouping similar items also builds important thinking skills. So keeping all the writing tools together for all science materials in one place helps children practice sorting and categorizing. These are the same skills used for organizing ideas in writing and studying for tests. When children have clear places for their belongings, they spend less time searching and more time completing tasks. And this supports independence and reduces the need for constant caregiver reminders. Knowing steps means helping children break a large task into smaller, clear parts. This supports planning and sequencing, which are key executive function skills. And when a task feels too big, children may avoid it or feel overwhelmed. Caregivers can teach children how to break tasks into smaller steps. So you might have a young child cleaning their room, and we're going to break it down by putting clothes away, then picking up the toys, then making up the bed. Or an elementary school student may complete homework by taking out materials and finishing one subject at a time and then packing their bag. Or as they get older, it might be about choosing a topic, gathering materials, creating a draft, and then editing to be able to break down the steps of a project. Children also need help understanding the order of steps. For example, they may need materials before starting a project. And learning this order reduces frustration and helps tasks go more smoothly. Planning ahead is also important. Children can be taught to think through what they will need to do before they begin. So a young child may gather crayons before starting a drawing, or an older child may gather notes and supplies before starting the assignment. When children can break tasks into steps, follow a clear order, and plan ahead, they're more likely to stay on track, start tasks, and finish their work. So today, we're looking at organization as a journey, not a destination. And just like a child learns to walk before they run, they must learn to organize their life in stages. As a child's brain grows, your role as a caregiver must change. At first, we provide a high level of structure and guidance. Then we slowly reduce that support as children build skills and become more independent. In education, we call this scaffolding. It's about providing the right support and then slowly fading the support. Think of scaffolding on a building. It's there to provide strong support while the structure is being built, but it's slowly taken away as the building gets stronger. The goal is not for children to be fully independent right away. The goal is to match the level of support to the child's development. Too much support can limit independence, and too little support can lead to frustration. When support is adjusted over time, children build skills they need to manage their own tasks and responsibilities. In the early elementary years, organization is not yet an internal skill. It's something provided by the caregiver through the environment. At this stage, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for planning, organizing, and self-control, is still really developing. And because of this, children have a limited working memory and can usually only hold on to one or two steps in their mind at a time. Young children also have difficulty thinking ahead. They tend to focus on what is happening right now rather than what will happen later. This means they're not able to plan for future tasks or remember what they will need later in the day. At this stage, the caregiver role is to architect. Young children need adults to create the systems that support organization. This means setting up the environment so it's easier for children to know what to do. Caregivers may use visual labels, clear home spots for important items, and timers that help make time easier to see and understand. At this age, caregivers are also modeling and thinking and showing the thinking process. This means saying steps out loud, such as where to put materials, what comes next, or how long a task might take. Children are not yet able to manage these demands on their own, so the adult provides the structure and language first. And over time, this helps children begin to learn the routines and systems they will use more independently as they grow. Ernest is now going to share a little bit about what happens in upper elementary years and on.
All right, thank you, Ashley. In the upper elementary years, the brain is developing more quickly. Connections between different parts of the brain are becoming stronger, and this helps children begin to pause and think before they act, rather than acting right away. And at this stage, children are starting to understand what they need to do, but time is still difficult. Their sense of how long something will take is not yet accurate, and a child may think homework will take 5 minutes when it actually takes 20. They may also wait too long to start a task because they misjudge the time needed. Because of this, children still need support with planning and managing time, and they are building these skills, but they are not yet consistent. At this stage, the caregiver role shifts from the architect to the manager, and children benefit from gradually taking on responsibility while still having adult support. Caregivers still manage the overall plan for the day, but they begin to give children small, clear responsibilities. And these micro jobs, they're going to help children practice organizational skills in a manageable way. A child may be responsible for checking their lunch and water bottle are in the bag, or making sure their homework folder is packed. These tasks will build confidence and independence. And at this stage, caregivers are no longer doing tasks for children, but they are still providing guidance and reminders. The overall goal is to support success without removing support too quickly. And with this balance, children begin to build the skills they will need to manage more independently in the later grades. In middle school, the brain goes through a major period of development. The brain is reorganizing by removing unused connections and strengthening others. And this supports more advanced thinking over time. But during this stage, skills may look less consistent. And because of these changes, students often have difficulty starting tasks, staying organized, and estimating how long work will take. A student who seemed organized in fifth grade may appear more forgetful or disorganized in the sixth grade. And this is common and expected as part of a development. During this time, students still need the support as their skills adjust. So changes in organization do not mean a child has lost skills. It just reflects how the brain is developing and rebuilding more advanced systems. And at this stage, the caregiver role shifts from the manager to the partner. Children are going to benefit from shared support as they build stronger planning and problem-solving skills. Instead of giving directions, caregivers work alongside children. And this includes asking questions that guide their thinking, such as, what do you need to get started? Or which part should you do first? And these steps, and this helps children learn how to plan and organize tasks. This approach is called co-regulation, and it means the caregiver and the child share the thinking process. The caregiver is going to support the planning, sequencing, and decision making, while the child practices these skills. And during this stage, caregivers are going to provide support without taking over. And this helps children stay on track while building independence. And over time, children will begin to take on more of the thinking and planning on their own. In high school, the brain is nearing the end of its major development. The prefrontal cortex, which supports planning, organization, and decision making, is much stronger at this stage. Children are better able to manage tasks, think ahead, and make decisions with less support. And at this age, the goal is for students to take primary responsibility for their work. And this is going to include managing assignments, their planning time, and meeting deadlines without daily caregiver direction. And a high school student may track assignments using a planner or break down long-term projects and adjust their schedule when needed. Now, as a caregiver, you're still going to play a role, but it shifts to guidance rather than daily management. And this level of independence helps prepare students for life after graduation, which includes college, training programs, or employment. Now, at this stage, the caregiver role is going to shift from the partner to the advisor. Older children are going to build independence when they are given the space to manage their own systems, with support provided as needed. Caregivers are no longer managing daily tasks. Instead, they step back and allow children to take the lead with their systems for time, places, and steps. And this includes managing assignments, organizing materials, and planning their schedule. When mistakes happen, caregivers allow natural consequences to occur. A missed assignment may lead to a lower grade, and these experiences provide important learning opportunities. So afterwards, as a caregiver, you can guide reflection by asking questions such as, what was your plan? Or what can you change next time? And in this stage, the caregiver's role is to offer support when asked and to help problem solve after challenges. This approach is going to help children build responsibility, learn from mistakes, and prepare for independent adult life. If a middle or high school student still struggles with basic organization, this doesn't mean that they cannot become organized. It often just means there's a gap in their skill development, like academic skills, executive functioning skills, and they can be taught over time as well as strengthened. Caregivers can go back and teach these skills directly, and this may mean returning to earlier levels of support, such as the model or the manager, and that's even for older students. A caregiver might set up clear home spots for items to use, such as simple labels, or they can create step-by-step routines. And these supports are not too basic, but they match the skill needs of the child. By strengthening these foundational skills, children are better able to build more advanced organization over time. The goal is steady progress, and when systems are clear and consistent, students feel more prepared and are better able to manage tasks and learning. So thinking about your child's journey, what type of support feels right for them at this stage? And keep in mind that starting at the architect or manager level is valid and helpful, and it's a step towards building their independence over time. When caregivers help children practice knowing time, places, and steps, they're supporting the development of executive functioning skills. Children learn organization through clear, consistent systems and not just through reminders. And these strategies provide structure that help children be successful at all grade levels. A young child may use a visual routine, an elementary student may follow a checklist, and an older student may use a planner and an organized workspace. Instead of telling a child to be organized, caregivers can teach specific skills. And this includes how to manage time, where to keep materials, and how to break tasks into steps. And with these supports, children are more able to manage their environment and complete tasks independently. And as adults, we often organize our day without thinking out loud. And children do not yet have this internal process. So to learn these skills, they need to hear how thinking and planning works. And caregivers can support this by saying they're thinking out loud. And this helps children understand how to manage time, make plans, and stay organized. So instead of saying we're leaving in 5 minutes, a caregiver might say, it's 5:40 and it takes 15 minutes to get there, so we need to leave at 5:55. That gives us 15 minutes to finish and get ready. By saying that, this helps the child connect time with actions. Caregivers can also model how to handle tasks. So for example, I have a lot to do, so I'm going to make a short list. First, I would do the dishes, then I would check my mail. And this shows how to break tasks down into steps. It is also helpful to explain where items go and why. So for example, I put my keys here every day so I can find them quickly in the morning. And this teaches children that organization is about having systems, not just being neat. So when caregivers make their thinking visible, children begin to learn the internal language needed to plan, organize, and complete tasks on their own. Every child learns and processes information in different ways. Some children respond best to visual supports, such as pictures, charts, or written checklists, and others respond better to verbal supports, such as spoken reminders or directions. Children may also need different supports at home than at school. So when a child has difficulty starting or finishing a task, we can use 3 areas: knowing time, knowing places, and knowing steps to identify the problem. This helps caregivers choose the right type of support. And if a child does not know how to begin a task, they likely need help with steps, such as a checklist or clear directions. If a child is running out of time, they may need support with time, such as a timer or schedule. If a child is losing materials, they may need support with places, such as a clear and consistent storage. Matching the strategy to the specific need is important, because when support fits the problem, children are more likely to succeed and build independence over time. Now we'll look at specific strategies in the knowing time category. And children are often struggle with hidden time, or time they cannot see or track easily. So because of this, they may have difficulty starting tasks, staying on task, or finishing on time. Caregivers can support this by making time visible. Tools like visual schedules and timers help children see how time is used throughout the day. A young child may follow a picture schedule, while an older student may use a timer to manage homework or study time. These tools help build key skills, and children learn that time estimation by understanding how long tasks take. They also learn buffering by allowing extra time for transitions or unexpected delays. With consistent use, these supports help children better understand time and manage their daily routines more independently. So let's check in. Where is your child currently with their time skills? And do you feel our upcoming strategies align with how things work in your household? For younger children, visual schedules provide a clear plan for the day. When children can see what is coming next, they have an easier time moving between activities. Tools like pictures, picture schedules, whiteboards, or simple calendars help make the day predictable. When a child can see their routine, they do not have to rely on memory to know what comes next. And this reduces cognitive loads and allows them to focus on tasks in front of them. A morning schedule might include steps like eat breakfast, brush teeth, and put on shoes. Consistent visual supports also help children feel more secure. A predictable routine helps the brain stay calm and ready to learn. So instead of giving repeated verbal reminders, caregivers can just point to the schedule, and this is going to encourage the child to check the plan and move to the next step independently. As children move into middle and high school, visual schedules should change to support greater independence. Older children are more likely to use systems they help create. And at this stage, caregivers and children work together to plan schedules. Instead of deciding the plan, caregivers involve the child in the process. And a caregiver might say, "You have homework and practice tonight. How do you want to plan your time?" And this is going to help children practice decision making and time estimation. So when a child can help create the plan, they're more likely to follow it. At this age, it's important to guide rather than to direct. And giving too many instructions can lead to resistance. So working together helps reduce conflict and builds ownership. Repeated reminders may feel like nagging to older children, and this can increase stress and reduce engagement. So instead of written or visual support such as planners, checklists, or calendars, they help children manage their time more independently. And one of the most difficult parts of organization is moving from one task to the next. And children are going to benefit from clear and simple language during transitions. A first then strategy is a strategy that breaks the task into two parts: what needs to happen now and what will happen next. This reduces confusion and helps children focus on one step at a time. So a caregiver might say, "First finish your homework, then you can play outside." Now, this approach is going to help children understand the order of events and what is expected. It also clearly shows when a task is complete. So when children know what comes next, they are more likely to stay focused and finish the current task. And over time, these supports and planning skills, and then children are going to begin to think ahead and understand that completing one task leads to the next. And this is going to build that foundation for managing longer and more complex routines independently. Many children struggle with time blindness, and that means that they have difficulty noticing how time is passing. So tools would make times visible or more effective than tools that only show numbers. So digital clocks that display numbers, which can be harder for children to understand. But analog clocks and visual timers show time as a physical space, which is easier for the brain to process. Different tools support different ages and needs. So an analog clock helps children see how much of the hour has passed and how much remains, while a visual timer, which shows time decreasing with a color or shape, are especially helpful for children in grades K through 5 because they clearly show that time is running out. Digital timers or alarms are more helpful for older students who already understand time but need reminders to start or stop tasks. And caregivers can also make time practice more engaging. So for younger children, setting a shorter timer and asking them to finish a task before time runs out can actually increase their motivation. And for elementary and middle school students, children can estimate how long a task will take and then check their estimate with a timer. For high school students, short timed work periods followed by breaks can help improve focus and task completion. These strategies will help children build their time awareness, improve estimation, and stay engaged with tasks across all grade levels. The second category is knowing steps, and this is the ability to take a large task and break it down into smaller, manageable actions. So when children feel stuck, it is often because they do not know how to begin, not because they are unmotivated. So caregivers can support this by teaching strategies, checklists. They help children see each step in order. Chunking, which helps break a large task into smaller parts. And backwards planning, which helps older children start with the final goal and then work backwards to the first step. A young child may use a simple checklist for getting ready in the morning, while an elementary student may break homework into one subject at a time. A middle or high school student may plan a project by identifying the final due date and then working backwards to set smaller deadlines. These strategies will help children understand how to start, continue, and finish tasks. So over time, they build that ability to plan and complete more work independently. So let's check in. Where is your child currently, with their knowing step skills? And do you feel our upcoming strategies align with how things work in your household? Checklists. Checklists are going to be an effective tool for supporting organization. Writing steps down reduces the demand on working memory. So instead of trying to remember what to do next, children can just look at the list and follow each step. And this is going to make larger tasks feel more manageable. So a young child may use a simple checklist for a morning routine, and an elementary student may use a checklist for homework tasks. A middle school or high school student may use a checklist to track steps in a project. Checklists are also going to provide clear feedback. So when children mark a step as complete, they can see their progress, which is going to build that motivation and independence. Across all ages, children act as a guide. Checklists act as a guide. They help children complete tasks with fewer reminders and support them in managing their day more independently. And to be effective, checklists need to be part of the child's environment. Children are more likely to use a checklist when it's easy to see and access. Placing it in a consistent location, such as the refrigerator, bathroom mirror, or near the door, helps make it part of their daily routine. Children are also more likely to use a checklist when they help create it. So caregivers can work with your child to decide which steps to include. And this is going to also increase their understanding and their ownership. Checklists should be short and manageable, grouping tasks into about 3 to 5 steps, which will help reduce overwhelming feelings. This helps children stay focused and complete tasks more easily. Checklists will also show progress. So when children check off a step, they can see where they have completed. And this will increase that motivation and help them continue. Consistency is going to be important. So when a child asks what to do next, caregivers can just point to the checklist instead of giving a verbal reminder. This is going to encourage the child to use the tool independently and then build their confidence over time. So next, I'm going to pass it over to Carrie, who's going to talk about checklists for younger children.
Thank you, Ernest. For children in elementary school, checklists are most effective when they are simple and visual. Younger children process pictures more easily than written text. Visual checklists make each step of the task clear and easy to follow. These checklists reduce the need for verbal directions, which can be difficult for children to remember. Instead of holding up multiple steps in their working memory, children can look at the checklist and follow one step at a time. It's important that the child marks each step as complete. This might include moving a magnet, sliding a marker, or checking a box. This action helps the child recognize that they have finished a step and supports motivation to continue. Visual checklists provide clear guidance and reduce reliance on memory, and help children move through the tasks more independently. As children move into middle school and high school, checklists become more advanced. Older children benefit from using checklists to manage multi-step tasks and long-term projects. Writing tasks down helps reduce mental overload, and makes large assignments feel more manageable. At this stage, checklists can take different forms. Children may use digital tools, planners, whiteboards, or simple sticky notes. The most effective system is the one that fits the student's daily routine and is easy to use. Caregivers should involve children in creating these systems. When children help decide what goes on the checklist, they are more likely to use it. For example, a caregiver might ask, what are the tasks that are the easiest to forget? And build a short list together. This shared approach helps reduce resistance and build ownership. The caregiver's role shifts from providing support and guidance, while the child takes the lead in managing their tasks. Backwards planning is a strategy that helps children understand the steps needed to meet a future deadline. Many children focus only on the due date and start too late. Backwards planning helps them to see what needs to happen before that date. Instead of starting with today, you begin with the final goal and work backwards. Caregivers can guide this by asking what needs to be done the day before, and then continue step by step. This helps children understand sequencing, time awareness, and the need to plan ahead. This strategy can be used for all ages. For example, a younger child can plan the steps needed to get ready for an event. An elementary school student can break down a short project. A middle school or high school student can plan a long-term assignment by setting smaller deadlines leading up to the due date. Working together is important. When caregivers and children build the plan together, the child is more likely to follow it. During the task, caregivers can refer back to the plan instead of giving repeated reminders. Backwards planning helps replace last-minute stress with a clear and predictable process. It supports children in managing their time and completing tasks more independently. When children see large tasks, such as a messy room or a big project, they may feel overwhelmed and unsure how to start. Breaking tasks into smaller parts help reduce this feeling and supports the task initiation. Chunking is the process of dividing a large task into small, manageable steps. Each step should be simple and take a short amount of time. This helps children focus on one part at a time instead of the whole task. Caregivers can support this by helping children identify the first step. For example, instead of saying clean your room, the steps might be put your clothes in the basket, then pick up the trash, and finally put the toys away. Writing these steps on a checklist can make a clear plan. As children complete each step, they can check it off. This shows progress and helps maintain motivation. Chunking helps children start tasks, stay engaged, and complete the work more independently by turning large tasks into clear, achievable steps. For younger children, chunking works best when the task is very specific and easy to see. When tasks are too broad, children may feel overwhelmed and not start. Giving a narrow focus helps them know exactly what to do. Instead of saying, clean up the Legos, a caregiver might say, find all the blue pieces and put them in the bin. This gives the child a clear target and makes the tasks more manageable. It's helpful to start with a very small step. Early success increases the chance a child will continue. A caregiver might say, let's set a timer for 2 minutes and put away as many books as we can. When the timer ends, the child can stop. These strategies help children begin tasks, stay engaged, and build confidence by completing small, clear steps. For older children, chunking focuses on managing large assignments and busy schedules. When a task feels too big, children may delay in starting it or avoiding it. Breaking the task into smaller parts helps reduce this response and supports task initiation. Children can learn to create their own small, focused steps. Instead of writing, study for finals, they can write specific actions like read 3 pages review notes, or make flashcards. Each step should be clear and possible to complete in a short period of time. Caregivers can support this by guiding the process with questions. For example, this is a large project. What is one step you can complete in the next 20 minutes? This helps children practice planning and decision-making. By breaking the tasks into smaller steps, children are more likely to start, stay focused, and make steady progress. Over time, this builds independence and supports long-term project management skills. Think of the home as a system that children can learn to navigate. When the environment is consistent, children are better able to stay organized. When locations change often, children have to spend extra effort figuring out where things are, which can make daily routines more difficult. Knowing places means creating clear and predictable locations for important items. When each item has a consistent home, children do not have to search for it or rely on memory. This reduces stress and allows them to focus on school and other tasks. A young child may keep shoes and a backpack in the same spot each day. An older child may organize materials by subject in a consistent way. In the next slides, we will create specific strategies that help create an organized and predictable home environment. So let's take a minute to do one last check-in. Where is your child's current knowledge with their knowing places skills? And do you feel our upcoming strategies align with how things work in your household? The school day includes many transitions, and each one requires children to quickly shift their attention. Simple visual systems like color coding help reduce cognitive load. This means children use less mental effort to find materials and can focus more on learning. Color coding creates a clear and quick way to identify items. Instead of reading labels, a child can look for a color. A green folder might mean science, a red folder might mean math. This helps children find what they need more efficiently. For our systems to work, it needs to be consistent. All materials for one subject should match the same color. This may include folders, notebooks, planner entries. When the system is consistent, children begin to connect the color with the subject automatically. It also is important to involve the child in setting up the system. Children are more likely to use the system they help to create. Caregivers can allow children to choose colors or suggest other systems such as numbering or labeling. The goal is to create a system the child understands and will use independently. Using color coding at home can strengthen organization by making systems easier to see and follow. The brain processes color before text, so color can help children quickly identify where items belong without needing to read labels. In shared spaces like entryways or common areas, color can create clear and consistent systems. For example, each family member can have a specific color for their items. A child may keep their shoes, backpack, and books in a bin that matches their assigned color. This helps them quickly find and return items. Color can also be used to group items by purpose. For example, one color can be used for sports equipment, another for art supplies, and another for school materials. This helps children understand how items are organized and where to find them. These visual systems reduce the need for reminders and support independence. When children can quickly see where items go, they are more likely to manage their belongings on their own. A key principle of organization is every item needs a clear and consistent place. Children are more likely to put away items when they know exactly where they belong. If put it away is unclear, the task becomes more difficult to complete. When each item has a set location, children do not have to decide where it should go each time. This reduces decision making and helps build automatic habits. For example, a backpack always goes in the same spot, and shoes are always placed in the same bin. Clear boundaries help children understand when a task is finished. A labeled bin or a shelf shows exactly where the item belongs. For younger children, picture labels can be helpful. For older children, written labels work well. These labels support memory and make the systems easier to follow. Having a place for everything creates a predictable environment. This supports independence and helps children manage their belongings more effectively. If you wait until 7 a.m. to start organizing your day, you've already lost the most valuable resource you have, a calm brain. For children, mornings are high-stress environments where executive function is often at its lowest. By moving the thinking tasks to the night before, we shift the burden from a rushed, sleepy child to a calm, prepared one. The goal is to make the morning so automatic that it requires almost zero decision making. We focus on the 3 biggest morning hurdles. By clearing these at night, you remove the friction that usually leads to a power struggle. Having your child pick out their entire outfit, down to the socks and shoes, and lay it out in a consistent spot. This eliminates the "I have nothing to wear" or "Where's my other shoe?" meltdowns at 7:15 in the morning. Instead of shoving papers in a bag while the toast is burning and doing a pack up, do a pack up at night. Check the folders, put the homework in, and zip it up. The very last step of the night is placing the backpack, sports gear, and coat on the launch pad. Ultimately, preparing at night proves that organization isn't just a chore. It's a strategy for a happier, calmer life. I just mentioned the launch pad, but exactly what is it? Think of the launch pad as your home's mission control. It is a designated, non-negotiable zone, usually located right by the door you use the most, where every single item needed for the launch into the outside world must land before bed. By having the child experience a structured exit process, we move organization out of the child's head into a space that does the remembering for them. The launch pad must be in a natural path of travel. If your child has to go into a separate room to find their bag, the system will break down. It should be the very last thing they touch before turning the knob. The launch pad should include a set spot for larger items like backpacks and coats. If there are multiple children, each child can have their own space, such as a hook or a bin, to keep items separate and easy to find. It should also include a small bin or a basket for smaller items that are often misplaced, such as hats, gloves, or glasses. This keeps items contained and easy to access. For older children, a charging area can be helpful. This may include a space to charge devices like phones or laptops overnight so they are ready to use in the morning. When each item has a clear place within the launch pad, children can quickly gather what they need and leave the house with fewer reminders. Technology can be a helpful tool for organization. Many adults use digital calendars, reminders, and task managers to stay on track. However, children need to first understand how organization works in a physical, visible way before they can use digital systems effectively. Hands-on tools such as paper checklists, a visual schedule, or whiteboards help children learn this process. Writing tasks down or physically marking them complete strengthens understanding and memory. These actions make the steps of organizations clear and concrete. Caregivers also need to make their organization visible. When planning only happens on a phone or a device, children cannot see the thinking process. They may not understand how decisions are made or how tasks are organized. To support learning, caregivers can show and explain their planning. For example, they might review a calendar out loud, explain a schedule change, or talk through how they organize the tasks. This helps children see how organization works step by step. Once children understand these processes, digital tools can be introduced to support independence. As we close, it's important to remember that organization is a skill that develops over time. Children learn these skills through practice, support, and repeated use of the systems. They will not master strategies like chunking or backwards planning right away. Caregivers' role is to support this growth. This means moving from giving directions to guiding and encouraging. When children make progress, even in small steps, it's important to recognize that effort. This helps build self-efficiency or the belief that they can manage the tasks on their own. Organization does not need to look perfect. The goal is to create systems that work for your family and support your daily routines. When children have clear tools and consistent support, they are more likely to build independence, manage challenges, and complete tasks with less stress. Organization is a skill that develops over time, not something children are born with. Children build these skills when caregivers provide clear systems and adjust support as the brain develops. Across all ages, children need help with 3 key areas: knowing time, knowing places, and knowing steps. Caregivers support this growth by creating predictable environments, teaching strategies like visual schedules, checklists, chunking, and backwards planning, and gradually shifting the role from the architect to the manager, to the partner, and finally to the advisor. The goal is to give the children the right level of support at the right time. With consistent practice and clear tools, children learn to manage their time, materials, and tasks more independently. Over time, this builds confidence, reduces stress, and prepares them for success in school and beyond. As you begin using these strategies, remember that building organization takes time. Executive function skills do not develop overnight. Children learn through practice, mistakes, and support. It is important to give your child grace when they struggle. That is part of learning. It is also important to give yourself grace. Some days will be harder than others, and that is okay. You are learning these skills alongside your child, and effort matters more than perfection. Stay focused on connection, empathy, and consistency, and notice the small steps moving forward. Progress often shows up slowly.
Thank you all for attending today. We appreciate your time, and I know there have been lots of questions, and I'll have you help us through them. I know some of them came very early, but I wanted to make sure that we got through the presentation, just in case we were answering some of them. So
Sure.
I'll go ahead and take it to you, Amal.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for the great presentation and all the information that was shared today. We encourage all to put their questions in the Q&A. We'll be happy to answer them as much as we can. Also, I have posted in the chat a link for survey. Please fill that survey out to know how did you like your session today, and also for future webinars, maybe you can put some opinions for what you would like to see in the future, and your feedback, as always, is very important. So I'm gonna go
Amal,
ahead.
I will say Diana put in the chat that the link in the chat is not launching when clicked, and it's not allowing me to copy and paste. Will also be included in the email. So I don't know if
Yes.
there's something you guys can do on the back end.
Yes. I will send it anyway in the follow-up email to all the participants who may miss using the link right now for any reason. I'll try to post it again, but if so, it's okay. We will be send it to the follow-up email. So if you watch it on our YouTube channel and you would like to put your feedback, we will be happy to send it to you. And for all who have registered, they will get the link for the survey with all the information that we will send next week. So please keep putting questions in the Q&A, and we will start with the first question that we have. Someone is saying that they do actually face a challenge, how to help them learn how to estimate how long sometimes it will take. And I think this is related to the time of the task or what they are working on.
Mhm.
I mean,
Do you think? Go ahead, Ernest.
I was gonna say, you can kind of make it a game, especially if they're a younger student. Kind of in the slides we talked about, setting a time and first letting the student like take that ownership of saying, "Hey, how long do I think it'll take?" You can write it down. You can set a timer for that time and let it count down. And while the student's working on the task to see when the timer goes off, how much they finish the task. And now kind of get them a general idea of how far or how close they are. So let's say they thought they were going to finish it in 3 minutes, but they got two problems done. That'd be a good way of seeing it. Also help them build motivation, whereas they think it will take 10 minutes, but they finish in 5 minutes, and then that might motivate them to do another set of problems. So that could be one strategy you can utilize.
Yeah, I think the thing that's challenging with time is that it's really abstract, right? We all have a sense of it as we've gotten older, but you actually have to make it um, real and concrete for them. And like Ernest said, that's a really great strategy. Or using those timers can start actually visualizing what time is to be able to really figure out how long things take.
Another, okay, please go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I would also say model it, right? For yourself, especially with younger children. I have to make dinner. I have 15 minutes. I know it takes 10 minutes to cook the rice. I know it. So each of those little pieces help them understand what time means.
Thank you. The other struggle that we have is that a first grader is tired in the morning when he is waking up before we go to the SAC, and he's often tired after school too. It is hard for him to focus, learn when he is frequently tired. Do you have suggestion on how to manage despite the fatigue?
So I have the same issue with my three children. And so really that Launchpad helped kind of reduce the fatigue, but starting with one item at a time. So really matching the step to where your child is. So if there's a lot of fatigue, it is, I'm going to do these things. I'm going to set out your clothes. And setting out the clothes in one specific place, you're going to find that they're going to take over that job for themselves because they're going to want to pick out their clothes. But setting that step and kind of those routines, modeling those steps, except for maybe one part of it where they're responsible, and then they will, most children will actually build that independence, but you'll find that that'll reduce the fatigue because it won't be as you have to do all these things. You only have to do one, and then it'll build from step to step.
I also think that, the idea of having to teach them about organization and maybe you don't have those opportunities to sit down and say, okay, this is how we're going to do things now. But you just start, right? You just start. Today I'm going to set out your clothes, like Carrie said, but you're going to be in charge of getting your lunchbox in your backpack or whatever it may be, and just start the process and slowly fade those supports can kind of just be, this is the way things are going to be done at the house. This is how our house runs. This is the structure. And like I said, maybe you don't have those opportunities to have the sit down of what should we do, but the quicker you start it, the more it'll become part of your day to day.
I think this pretty much answered some of of the question that we are having next. It's asking about the methods of implementing some of these suggestions, like knowing places, setting up spaces for specific things. If you're already aware of the EFS, have tried options, steps, but the child resists using the tools shared by the parent. What do you suggest?
Also think that the person kind of added more at the last question because I've been trying to follow them to Amal. They said for someone who has a strong understanding of executive function, and they've gone through all the processes, and but they still can't hold things up long enough to make it impactful for themselves or the parents. So just, I think that's the same person.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I was gonna wait to see if anyone else.
Oh, I was reading the
Go ahead,
question.
Carrie.
Yeah.
I was reading the question because I actually have the same issue. I have terrible organizational skills. And the biggest, I would say, is reorganizing my own self, not worrying about if it was messy or not messy, but really looking at how I organize myself into a way that could be easy. And then after doing it myself, I would bring my child in for one step at a time. Um, I kind of go back to that launch pad. It's always that one piece of like, where do I leave my stuff so I can grab and go? Um, with that, you'll find that when something starts to work for a child, they will stick to it themselves because the less mental load that they have, the more motivated they are to do it. And each child will be different with you. I know for me that has worked. My time awareness is still really bad. I'm always 5 minutes late.
I will say from the opposite perspective, I know Carrie, struggles with executive function. I have really strong executive function skills, and life still happens. I may spend 3 weeks with my checklist, and I've got my calendar, and I have the launch pad set up every morning, and I even got the snacks ready the night before, and everything is on it, and we're chugging along. And then, 3 out of the 4 people in my house get sick and everything falls apart. And I'm scrambling to fill up the water bottles as they're running out the door. So I think to some degree, I have to provide myself grace, right? Especially with organization. And I think sometimes you also have to provide your child for child grace, right? They may be up and chugging along and they've got a good thing going, and then they get sick or something happens personally, or a big project comes and they're overwhelmed. And so things may falter a little bit. Also the big piece of puberty that we mentioned, right? Things start shifting, all of those things, all those skills and strategies that they were working on start shifting. And that's okay. If we have to pick it up and say, okay, we're going to start back with our launch pad again. I'm going to do this part. You're going to do that part. We're going to keep going. I think that's part of life, right? Life isn't always going to be the ability to have a packed lunchbox and a water bottle filled the night before. So providing everyone in the family grace, especially with this organization, some of the other executive function skills, I think can just go. But this one has a motor and then something happens and it gets stuck. And we just have to go, okay, we got stuck this time. We're going to pick ourselves up and keep going.
And on that point, it's okay to reset the way if something worked before, it may not continue working the year after. Exactly what Ashley's saying, life changes. So it's okay to be like, okay, this isn't working for us anymore. Just reset. But start small. Find one thing. I think I keep saying that because it is easy even for ourselves to say, I have so many things as parents that you have to keep track of. But if you can find just one thing, that'll help you feel success and that will translate to your child. That's where kind of that co-regulation will come in, right? I found success in doing this one thing. We all wake up at one time in the morning. Whether we all need to or not, we're all doing that.
Perfect. Thank you. The second question, do the supports looks different for ADHD, or is it just what that we need to expect to have to use the supports for a longer period while they learn?
You got it. I think go ahead, Ernest. I'll let you.
Oh, I was gonna say you got it. Yeah, I was like, yeah, that is true. It could look different, but also I would say look at it in terms of where your child is at. So, for example, is it more so if they're struggling with the knowing places, right? Having consistent places of storage things, then that could be what we focus on first. We start off with having one specific location, and we talk about just keeping, let's say, shoes there, right? If that's our biggest focus, or one thing that they struggle with first, let's break it down and let's focus on keeping that in a specific area. Let them practice that, and then as they master that, then we can add a second area, right? And then if needed, we had talked about checklists and visuals. We could put a visual on the door in the morning, also visual on the fridge, so they have a lot of reminders and they can start remembering, oh, this is where I need to go to pick this item up. Just having that routine and letting them practice that consistency will help them build and make it more of a routine and then have that independent skill develop.
There's a person who at the very last question asked kind of a similar question. How can you sequence which of these to start with for their 10-year-old with autism and ADHD? And I think Ernest just answered that. I think you need to figure out whether you think the knowing places, knowing steps, or those knowing time, which one are they struggling with the most? Which one are you going to get the most bang for your buck? And I would start with that strategy and then build in those other ones.
And know that sometimes giving more time to complete a task can actually be very overwhelming. But breaking those tasks into smaller pieces, that really is very successful with kids with autism and with ADHD. So a task may take 10 minutes, but they're going to do each step and it's only going to take 2 minutes. And there's those little micro steps, like what Ernest had kind of talked about, are really important to get them to do it and giving little tiny breaks between.
Thank you. What happens if the child should be on one stage but is behind?
So when we put those ages with the stages, that's really like average. But all kids are different. All children have different needs. All families have different structures. So really, it's just about that progression of starting with the architect and ending with the advisor, and knowing that your child may need a little extra time in different areas, and different supports as they kind of, what does it look like to be the architect? Maybe you're in the architect for much longer than somebody else, and that's okay. It's just kind of those are the ways that you need to slowly fade support or provide extra support as they learn these skills.
I also want to add that sometimes that piece is also dependent on the task, right? So a lot of times in elementary and middle school, teachers already break up larger assignments for your students, but they get into high school and they don't know how to break it up. So you may start right at the architect and they're in high school, and that's okay.
How to overcome resistance to discussion about planning or developing systems, how to make them feel like they are not being criticized, but rather that we want to support them. Make sure we aren't nagging, give them more say in how things are done. And this is specifically for high school kids, like for ninth grader or 10th grader, or maybe older.
Okay. I mean, I think one of the biggest things in getting them to reduce that resistance is letting them feel involved in the conversation. So even sitting down just saying, hey, is there anything that you would like to work on? Or is there anything that you see? You could also switch it up and model it, whereas you can say, hey, I struggle with X, Y, and Z. Do you have some ways that you can help me? Or you all talk through it together. So then they see that it's not necessarily criticizing, but that's just breaking it down into how can we make things better. And then when you are sitting down and asking them what they would like to work on, making sure that we center on what's most important to them, because then that's going to give us the biggest buy-in. And we can select one thing that they want to change or work on, and then ask them to help with, all right, what would you like to start with first? Do you want to start with, let's say, learning to clean your room and how to break that down? And then once you do that first, just making sure you're praising them for that. And that's going to help build that motivation and confidence, and then make it more so it's an open almost like an open area where they're going to be open to you in terms of you being on their side versus you feeling like they're just being nagged as a child.
I also would think that modeling piece, right? I think it's hard to expect them to have a launch pad when you don't have a launch pad. And I say this as someone who has to run around their house for their car keys most days of the week, even though I think I'm very organized. So I think it's, this is just the way things are done in our house. We're gonna put things by the door. I'm gonna do it too. And that whenever whenever it's time to make the checklists, you're writing your checklist down, saying, this is the things I'm gonna need to do. Here's your piece of paper. What are you gonna do today? And really having that modeling piece and you being a part of the organization and the structure of the home.
Okay, thank you. This is very helpful. How can I utilize the checklist strategy for an older child that struggles with handwriting, where handwriting itself is a frustration and a barrier?
I
Um,
actually,
Go ahead, Carrie. Yeah.
this is actually my son exactly. My son struggles also with handwriting. And so for him, we started with my writing, him telling me what he needed to do, and I would write it out for him. And as an older child, it's okay to introduce technology if it's visual. Like he we have an Alexa in our house, and so he'll say, Alexa, make a reminder checklist. And he writes down all the things he has to do, and he sets a time limit on each one and checks it off on Alexa. And that's fine. Like we have a little echo thing. That's fine too. So there's different ways you can do it where you can introduce those pieces as well.
And sorry if Carrie just set off a bunch of devices in your home by saying the A word.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I forgot that that can happen.
Thank you. For upper elementary students, do we need to set up the desk and bookshelf in their bedroom?
I'll take this one. Absolutely. I've got an 11-year-old fifth grader, and it's been a game changer. We set it up in the summer, and that's our place of refuge. It's a slippery slope, however. I mean, they'll camp out up there forever if you give them an opportunity, right? So you still want to have, meals together and those kind of things. But it's a refuge for her, and it's a place where she gets her homework done, where she talks to her friends. On her tablet, all of those things. We just don't lock doors, right? So I'll barge in periodically just to be like, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Those kind of things. Make sure you're still interacting. But all of us need those places of refuge and those spaces, to be comfortable sometimes when there's anxiety and things like that come up.
Thanks, Scott. We appreciate that perspective.
Yes. My,
Also, I feel like if you don't have, I mean, like the reality is sometimes it's just not an option, and that's okay, right? Like I think there are so many pros to it. It really provides that independence and that like ownership. And if you don't have the space, that's okay.
and work with your child. Where do they want to be? Sometimes they want to be in their room. My children do not. They want to be on top of me. So we set up places in my office where we all sit and do our homework together. So it is what works for your family. It just has to be consistent. That's the big key with that is the consistency piece.
Thank you all. My 17 years old is struggling with organizing schoolwork, papers, homework, and he is reluctant about accepting parents' help. Any in-person help available for high school students?
I mean, I know in high school, if they're looking at in-person help, every high school has advisory periods. As well like specific times in almost like an intervention or like a major time, for example, or a length of time depending on the school name. But during these times, students can meet with teachers, advisors, and they can actually sit and actually go through notebooks. When I taught high school, we would literally have periods where we take 30 minutes and literally organize and show students how to do it. We pull out planners, we pull out dividers, we help them set up their notebook and binders that best met their needs. So definitely an advisory would be a good time if they're a high school student that they can get in-person help.
And there are, I mean, this is more from a private perspective. There are things called executive function coaches that can support um, you, but that's not something Fairfax County would necessarily provide. We're doing that more through the advisory or the strategies for success courses at the high school. But if you do have the option privately, they do have executive function coaches.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have a question about how to get them to actually use the checklist and visual.
That's kind of where that motivation piece lies in, right? It's those visuals and those checklists, putting on there the reinforcer, right? Is it that they get 10 minutes of you leaving them alone on their device, or whatever that reinforcer is, gets them to want to use it. And then you'll find kind of that internal motivation as they're checking off. There's a certain amount of accomplishment that comes along with as they check off each piece that they've finished. So, those checklists don't have to just have what they have to do, but also what really the item that they want to do. I'm so sorry. A bee just came at me. Somehow a bee got into where I am at. I'm so sorry.
I'd also say and I think I mentioned this before, and I think this answers kind of the next question as well. Kind of them taking their ownership. How are they actually going to use it? I would be like, okay, it's Saturday morning. We've got an hour before we've got, soccer. I need to get some things done. I'm gonna, empty the dishwasher, throw a load in the laundry, and I would write out my checklist on a piece of, like on a post-it. And then I would hand them a post-it and I say, what do you need to get done in this next hour? And maybe it's play on my Switch and do something, like maybe it's not necessarily the stuff you want them to do, but just the act of them learning how to use a checklist would be a good place to start. And everybody in the house is using a checklist for this next hour before we leave. And then slowly kind of shape it to be like, okay, but what's one of the things that, you need to get done to be ready to leave, and begin shaping that checklist to be more of the kind of organization tasks or those things that we need them to get done in the house or chores that they have.
Thank you. Okay, so are you aware of any apps that can be helpful to create visual checklist routines for young kids that you can recommend?
It's a great question. I know that there's some resources for teachers as far as visuals. I will look to see what apps I can find, and maybe Amal, I can get back to you next week if I find anything. Obviously, I know there's lots of task management stuff for older for adults and older people, older children, but I'm not sure about resources for visuals. The visuals also don't have to be fancy. You can just, use a clip art on a Word doc and print it out or draw a picture of it, right? It doesn't have to be all beautiful every time.
Beautiful. Thank you. Does every Fairfax school have a behavior intervention specialist?
So every Fairfax County school does have a behavior intervention teacher. We support multiple schools, so there's not necessarily one housed there. But if you reach out to one of the counselors or the administrator, they can actually find out if that person's available to come to support your child, and the school team was supporting your child. Oh, Canva is a great idea. Canva is a online website that can definitely help make visuals. Thank you, Diana.
And we are coming to our last question. It's about like, how can I make my kids do their own tasks on the checklist? Because when the parent is helping to do that, they feel it's not their own task.
Mhm.
Get the kid. So in this case, I would say, was the kid involved in making the checklist? So it's kind of like Ashley said it before, when they are just given a task and they don't have that involvement, they're less likely to want to engage in it, right? So just kind of working with your child to when you're making the checklist, hey, what steps would you like to see done? What steps can we add? And let them include those steps. That will better off get them to engage more and not feel like it's just them being told what to do, but it's a task that they have and it's their own ownership.
I also, with my kids, we always put it on the same, same kind of checklist look, right? So I have a specific I actually printed out from Canva. We have a template and we use dry erase markers, and we have some chores that are always there, and then we have some blank spots that we can add that my kids might say that they want to do. During the summer, my son likes to mow the lawn. Happy to have him do it. So he mows the lawn and he'll add that in as like his last chore. So each of them have their things and they start to take over what they want to finish doing.
Thank you. I think we still have 1 more minute to get that last question about, the fourth grader, despite making schedule and dedicated desk to do homework, the child will bring their toys and pretend play stuff to these areas, and it is hard to ask them to keep cleaning.
A bin. Have a bin that they have to put it in, and then it's easily taken away. So that way, during the homework time, you take the bin away, just out of reach, and then it goes back after they're done, in case it's like their place of refuge, like what Scott was saying.
I agree. And that way you don't have to clean it up, even if it's the pretend play and the Legos and everything in one bin. That's okay. For right now, it's just everything's going to get taken. And then when it's time, you can put it back. And then if we actually have to put things away later, that's a different situation.
Thank you so much for answering all the questions that we have got today, and also the great presentation and the wonderful series. We are getting a lot of good feedback from all families who have attended it so far. Please stay tuned for the email that we are going to send next week with all the previous sessions recording links, and also the information or the any resources that have been shared that could be helpful. And also please check with the FRC. We do have a lot of resources related to executive functions and ADHD and other stuff that could be really helpful, including library materials and digital resources. Thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you, Amal. We appreciate you. Bye.
Thank you. It was a pleasure working with you all.
Yeah.
Looking forward next year.